Hi, and welcome to Palo TV. I'm Steve Roitstein. This is a video about how to turn your Mac computer keyboard into a MIDI keyboard. If you like the stuff that's on the channel, I'd really appreciate it if you click the subscribe button plus the little bell. That way you'll get notifications when new content is uploaded. And there's going to be more stuff about music production, sound recording, MIDI, plus all of the music business stuff. All of this material is instructional video for my classes at Miami-Dade College. But if you're not a student there, I hope you enjoy what you're watching. We're looking at a USB MIDI keyboard. It doesn't have any sounds. All it does is transmit MIDI, and this is a very bare bones keyboard, but it might be enough for your uses. However, obviously, if you purchase a USB MIDI keyboard, you have to spend money on it, and it takes up room, and sometimes it just may not be convenient. In my case, I do have one in my bigger studio room, but right now I'm in my office, otherwise known as my kitchen table, and there's really no room here for a USB keyboard. But still, I would like to be able to do some performances of MIDI in real time. And without a keyboard, a MIDI keyboard, I need this app that turns your computer keyboard into a MIDI keyboard. The one that I'm using is free, and it works for Mac, but there are other applications available for PC. So let's get started. I'm going to go to Pro Tools first. And this is a free version of Pro Tools available on their website. I've already got it open to save some time. I'm going to go to the File menu and choose Create New. I want to give it a name. If you wanted to open something that you've been already working on and you want to keep working on it, you would go to the Open button, and then you'd see all the stuff that you've got. I'm not going to be working with a template. I'm going to create something from scratch. And I'm going to give it a name. If this were a class project, we would use our file naming standards, which is the first initial, last name, and the name of the project. But in this case, I'm just going to give it a simple name. I'm in the mood for a Cuban piano. I love Cuban music, so I'm just going to call this one Cuban Piano. Pro Tools First always defaults to checking this option, back up to cloud. Not really a bad option, but I've noticed it slows things down a little bit, so I'm going to uncheck it, and that causes this project to be saved locally on my computer. Click the Create button. And what I have now is a blank session, or a blank, I guess it's a session project. I would like to prepare for playing something in real time using my Mac keyboard as a MIDI keyboard. And in order to do that, I need a click track. Whenever you record something in real time, you always need the click track to keep yourself on the grid. All right, I'm a little zoomed out, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit down here in the lower right-hand corner. And now I can see the timeline, the bars, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. Pro Tools defaults, since it can't read my mind, it defaults to 120 beats a minute. And let me see, can I hear my click? Yes. All right. So that's good. I can follow the beat. What I'd like to do is try and play a piano part. Let me unselect this MIDI merge feature. I'll go into that in a minute. So I'm going to do the most convenient way of setting up a MIDI track You may know this already, but it's not bad to review it. I'm going to go to the track menu up here, choose New. We're going to go for a stereo instrument track, and I'm going to name the track before I start recording on it, and I'm just going to call it piano for now. It's handy to name it first because then, whether it's a MIDI track, an instrument track, or an audio track, all the clips that you end up recording have the name of the track. And that's convenient when you start building up a lot of clips. It's better that they're not all called track 1 or audio 1 or something like that. A MIDI track itself does not make any sound. It just records your performance. So we need to put in this insert column an instrument track. And we're going to go ahead and use Insert A. Click there. Choose Multi-Channel Plugin, Instrument, and then whatever virtual instruments you have installed on your computer will show up here. And I'm going to use Expand, which comes with Pro Tools first, and it's got really great sounds, I think, very, especially because it's free. When you bring that up, the default sound that is in slot A is a pad sound, and I'm going to change that by clicking here, choosing acoustic piano as the bank. And within that bank, I'm just going to go for kind of a regular piano sound, natural grand piano. Great. For now, I don't really need this at the moment. If I wanted to use the pencil tool to draw in some notes, I could do that now. Grab the pencil tool. And in the View menu of Pro Tools first, I could select MIDI Editor. And now when I bring my cursor over here to this keyboard, I could audition. See kind of how the sounds are. Nice. Okay. If I were to draw a note in, it would be adhering to a quarter note grid, and it would give me a note of the velocity of 127. I think the original default is 80 or 90. 127 is the loudest, or the highest number, I should say. Depends on the actual sound program, how that program does or does not respond to velocity. So if I go down here and I want to draw in a C3, and let me zoom in on this window a little bit. I'm going to kind of scroll back to the beginning, bar 1, beat 1. If I just click and drag, I could fill up a whole measure. Oops. Let me try that again. It gets a little tricky with my trackpad because I don't have a mouse. Let's hear what that sounds like. All right. Let me create a little bit more room here for this row here, this lane that's showing velocity right now. And you can see it's up all the way to the top. If I pull it down, I can audition what that sound sounds like with lower velocity. And you can hear that the tone and the volume change because this particular sound has samples of a piano played, I think it seems to me like at 3 different levels of velocity. So somewhere toward the middle, it's got like a middle hit. And as you go up, it's got a recording of a piano playing louder. It's not just louder volume, it's also that the content, the harmonic content, the frequency content of that sample is a recording of a piano getting played louder. So it's not just louder in volume, it's got a tone, a timbre of a piano playing louder. Well, I'm going to actually get rid of that clip now. You can see that the clip has the name of the track, which is very handy, but I'm going to click on it and delete it because I want to try and play something in that sort of Cuban piano vibe. And I'm going to bring up this application, which I already downloaded, and that's what you're going to have to do. They have them for PC. They're similar. There's another one that I downloaded, which is also very nice. Not much nicer than this, a little nicer. It costs around 15 bucks. And I bought it from the App Store, but I figured I would show you this one because it's free. You can donate some money to the website if you want. And I'm going to have the link in the description of the video so that you know where to get it. This is showing me, this is a C3. It's the letter T on my keyboard. So if I'm now trying to use my MIDI keyboard, I might try something like that. Well, another one of the really convenient things about MIDI is if you're trying to play something in real time, whether it's on a USB keyboard and you're a keyboard player, or whether it's on your computer keyboard and you're using your computer keyboard to play, you might not be able to play it at the tempo that you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of make it easier on myself. Up here, I'm going to switch from 120 beats a minute, which is the default, and I'm going to type in something lower. Let me guess, like maybe 94. Let me hear what that sounds like. Yeah, now that's slower than I want, but I think it's going to be a good tempo so that I can do a performance on this computer keyboard. I need to put the track in record enable because if not, Pro Tools First will not see the data coming in. So I'm ready to go. I have to have a count off because I want to start recording right at bar 1, beat 1. But I need a count off in order to get started. Plus, once I set this to record, I need a little bit of time to switch so that MIDI keys is in front. It's like the active app. Otherwise, it won't work. So I've got it ready, and there's a quick way to switch. If you're on a Mac, Command Tab will allow you to tab through whatever you have open. So I'm going to start out on Pro Tools First, put it in record, and then quickly go to MIDI keys and try and play something. So I click record, play, and it's going to give me the count off. And sometime during those first 2 bars, I'll get ready to play. Here we go. 1, 2, ready. Okay. Let me zoom out a little bit and see what that looks like. Okay, so I zoomed out on the MIDI edit view, and I also can zoom out on the overall edit view. Right now, I just have this one track. Let me rewind and audition what I did. Very simplified Cuban piano riff, what they might call in Cuban music un tumbao. It's really only doing a very simple version of what the right hand would do, or maybe the left hand, and the right hand might be doing something else. Well, you can hear and you can actually see, especially if I zoom in here on the MIDI editor that some notes are pretty close to the grid and others are way off. All the velocities are set to 127. If you look here on the app, MIDI keys, I've got the velocity all the way up. And you can change that. I don't know if it gives any feedback as far as what the velocity is precisely, but I had it all the way up. And you can see down here in this lane that the velocity is all the way up. So it's a little bit robotic from that standpoint, and it's also going to sound even more robotic in a second, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to quantize it perfectly. In order to select the region, I'm going to get this selector tool, and you could do it up here right on the clip, or you could do it down here in the MIDI editor. I'm going to do it on the MIDI editor. I'm just going to click and drag and select all those notes in the region. If I wanted to use the long way to do it, I would go to the event menu, event operations, and quantize. But there's a key equivalent, and it's showing you, if you don't want to go through that, just type on your Mac option and 0. So that's what I'm going to do. Option 0. And this window pops up. I'm going to keep these the same. I'm not going to use 16th notes because the subdivision, the smallest rhythmic entity, is not a 16th note. It's an 8th note. So I'm going to choose 8th note. And if you keep your eye down here on the MIDI editor, when I click apply, you're going to see everything kind of jump right onto the grid. And there it is. And now I'm done with this window for now. I'm going to see how that sounds. Not too bad. I'm going to undo that for a second and show you another option. So because I did Command Z, I did an undo on the quantize. So everything is back to the way it was. You can see some of the notes are early. I probably just had too much Cuban coffee a minute ago and I got sort of hyper. It might be okay, and I need to audition this now at a more realistic tempo. So I'm going to type in, let me just try 112 BPM. That's not fast enough. Maybe 122. It still, to my ears, it sounds too sloppy. It sounds almost drunk. And I don't want it to sound robotic. And if I do the select again and quantize it again, just to hear what it sounded like at the proper tempo, 'cause that's important. It's not bad, a little too tight, but this little trick that I'm going to show you is a subtle thing, but our ears are very good at recognizing subtle little details. So I want to show you something. I'm going to undo that again, Command Z. I'm going to go to quantize it again, Command 0. I'm sorry, Option 0. And down here in the options, I'm going to check strength. And instead of 100%, I'm going to try a number lower than that. Let's see what it would be like if I, instead of moving them all the way to the grid, I just move the ones that are off, which most of them are, 90%. I'm going to keep my eye on this MIDI editor and see how it looks after I click apply. It might be too much, but let me rewind. Well, I did rewind. Let me play it again. Pretty good. It feels loose. Maybe not as loose as I want. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to try 80%. Let's see. I'm kind of liking that. There's another thing that you can do. If you like it fully quantized, and for certain genres of music, you're probably going to want that. Cuban music is played typically by human beings, and the more machiney it sounds, the less authentic it sounds. So if you're trying to emulate that sound, fully quantized may not work well for you. I'm going to show you another thing that you can do. It's a little time consuming, but I'm going to take the grid off and go to what they call slip mode, which gives me more freedom to move notes around. And I noticed when I was hearing the playback that this little note here, that is the last little note that comes before the downbeat. It's a 2-bar phrase. Comes before the downbeat. It sounds to my ears, knowing Cuban music pretty well, it's too early. I'm sorry, it's too late. So I'm going to take it and just slide it manually tiny bit forward. And the same one with this one here. Just a bit forward. Let's hear what that sounds like. Yeah, a little greasier. You know, the way that I might play it in real time. And of course, I could have saved a version without quantizing and gone to all that trouble. The other thing that I'm going to do is mess a little bit with the velocity of that note. Because I know if I was playing that, I wouldn't hit that at the same velocity. If I was using a velocity-sensitive MIDI keyboard controller, like a USB controller, I would probably play that note a little softer and then re-attack the downbeat at its full velocity. But now they're both at the same velocity. I'm going to try and lower the velocity here by clicking here and just pulling it down a little bit. And the same here. Something like that. And let's see what that sounds like. It sounds a little swingier. It's like I'm intentionally playing that note a little bit swallowed. And so not only is the volume changing, but I think I'm also, because I don't know what the cutoff point is, but I think I went to that more mellower piano sample. That's pretty good. I might try it a little bit faster. Instead of 122, let me try 128. Hear what that sounds like. Even faster. What would it sound like at like 134? Not bad. How about 142? It's okay. It's decent. I would always save at a point like this when I knew that I was doing stuff that I liked. And it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's saving locally, not on the cloud. So it's cutting down a little bit on the annoying thing that happens when you're backing up to the cloud. It's constantly backing up, and it seems to interrupt my flow because it slows things down. Okay, well, maybe, I might typically have started with some percussion sounds just to give myself kind of a reference, and I didn't. I might, after playing a piano part like this, I might add a bass, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try to add something like maybe if this was the right hand of the pianist, and let's say there wasn't a bass player here or in this piece, I could add another track. Very easy to do. I would just duplicate this track. I wouldn't need the clip, so I just duplicate the setup. And I believe somewhere here, I think if it's control click, I don't have a mouse, if it would right click it, I could duplicate it. But I'm not going to. I'm going to show you another trick. Your typical behavior of a recording device, analog tape or digital audio workstation, would be that when you start recording again where there's already stuff there, that it would erase what was there previously. So if I started recording the left hand of the piano in this particular mode right now, it would erase what precedes it. This clip would start getting erased. And I don't want that to happen. I want to add to it. So I'm going to re-engage this button here, which is MIDI merge. What that allows you to do is record on top of this. It might be more convenient to have it on a separate track. But in this case, you know how to do that. You just duplicate the track and you would record your new stuff. And maybe you'd call the new one piano left hand. I'll show you how this works. I'm going to slow the tempo down again to maybe 98 beats a minute. By the way, the great thing about MIDI and slowing it down is that when you change the tempo or you transpose it, you're not at all in any risk of distorting the file, because MIDI, once again, this performance is not what's making the sound. It's triggering the expand instrument, and the instrument actually generates the sound being triggered by these notes. So the waveform that's coming out of the instrument is the pure waveform of the piano. If you actually recorded a piano or some other instrument in an audio track and you started messing with the tempo and the key, most likely you're going to end up at some point not being happy with the results, because there's only so far you can go with audio, transposing it and changing the tempo before it starts giving you some sort of audio artifact that is not going to be pleasing to your ears. So that's one of the big advantages of MIDI over audio. Okay, so now when I record, it's going to add to the MIDI clip whatever I record on top of it. All right, so right now I want to play the left hand, which in this case, I want it to sound like the piano player is also playing the bass notes. And in order to do that, I have to go up here to the keys menu, and I'm going to try an octave down. Let me try another octave down. That doesn't seem to be right. I thought that was going to work. Octave up, octave down. Well, it looks better now. Oh, I guess I just have to play the notes on the keyboard. All right, that's too far down. Let me go back up one octave. Something along those lines is where I'm going with this. All right, so I rewinded to the beginning, I'm going to go back to Pro Tools first, record, and remember, I'm in MIDI merge mode. And you can hear I did that classic syncopated bass line that Cuban music is famous for. Now let me return the tempo to whatever it was, 144, I don't remember. And if I wanted to, I could quantize that. In fact, it's possible if I'm clever enough, even though I recorded it on the same track, I think I might be able to just go in here and just select the piano notes and not, I'm sorry, the bass notes and not what's up there and quantize those. And I'm still not going to quantize them fully. I'm just going to use the 80%. But once again, in a different genre, it might just sound better to quantize them fully. There we go. They moved. Let's hear it. Kind of liking that. I'm going to do a similar trick here with the velocity because obviously a computer keyboard is not velocity sensitive. I'm going to select this note and pull the velocity down on that with the same principle that I did on the right hand, that I don't want that repeated note to sound robotic. So this little short note, I'm just pulling down the velocity a little bit. Let's hear that. Yeah, and now the click is starting to bug me, so I'm going to mute the click. I want to remind all my students, whenever you submit a mix to me, make sure the click is not sounding. It's just the worst. You never show your music to anybody with the click track sounding. Now let me hear it by itself. Yeah, it's almost, you know, if you like to dance salsa, you're close to it. In fact, if you're a really good salsa dancer, let's go for it. 158. Let's hear what that sounds like. Yeah, there we go. So that's a little about how to use your computer keyboard as a MIDI keyboard. I hope you enjoyed the video. Once again, if you like what's on the channel, click the subscribe button, click the little campanita, the little bell, and that way, whatever the subject is, whether it's music production or music business stuff, you'll be notified when new content is uploaded. This is Steve Roitstein saying adios.